For stopping payments to my parents after my mom refused to watch my baby? I'm Hillary, I'm 34 and 8 weeks after having my first baby, Owen. I was still wearing the same oversized sweatshirt 3 days in a row and pretending I was fine because that was what my family had trained me to do. I was the daughter who didn't ask for help, didn't make a scene, paid for my own problems, and somehow still got blamed when everyone else ran out of money, patience, or excuses. My family always called me the easy one. When I was younger, I thought that meant they trusted me. I thought it meant I was mature, dependable, the kid they didn't have to worry about. It took me way too long to understand that in my family, easy meant invisible. My older sister, Vanessa, was the one everybody protected. If Vanessa cried, the room adjusted around her. If Vanessa had a bad week, family plans changed. If Vanessa snapped at someone, Mom said, "She's under a lot of pressure." If I got upset, Dad would sigh and say, "Come on, Hillary. You're stronger than this." That sentence followed me into adulthood. When my birthday dinner got pushed back because Vanessa was overwhelmed with her kids, Mom said, "You understand. Your sister has more on her plate than you do." When my parents canceled a visit with me because Vanessa needed help organizing her garage, Dad said, "You don't need us hovering over you. You've always handled yourself." When I bought the bigger baby items for Owen on my own, my mom looked at the registry and said, "That's why we don't worry about you. You figure things out." Years earlier, when Vanessa wanted new nursery furniture, my parents, aunts, and even a few cousins chipped in because new moms need support. When I became a new mom, Vanessa commented that the bassinet I picked looked expensive and said, "Must be nice to be doing fine." I was not doing fine. I was just quiet. The money started about 4 years before Owen was born. My parents sat me down after Sunday dinner, after Vanessa had already left with leftovers packed in containers Mom bought specially for her. Dad rubbed his hands together like he was about to ask for a favor he hated needing. "We're in a temporary hole," he said. Mom looked embarrassed, which worked on me. She had always known exactly how to make me feel like a bad daughter for noticing when things were unfair. "It's the mortgage, insurance, utilities," she said. "Nothing wild. We just need to catch our breath." I asked how much they needed. Dad gave me a number. It was not small, but it was not impossible if I rearranged my budget and stopped putting as much into savings for a while. "Just until we catch our breath," Mom repeated. I believed them. I wanted to believe them. I set up an automatic monthly transfer, and later, when Mom said they were nervous about emergencies, I added a shared credit card with a low limit. It was supposed to be for pharmacy runs, utilities, urgent repairs, things like that. The temporary help became normal so slowly that I almost didn't notice when they stopped saying thank you. At first, Mom texted me every month after the transfer cleared. "Thank you, honey. This helps more than you know." Then it became, "Got it." Then eventually, nothing. If I ever sounded stressed about money, Dad would say, "Everyone's stressed. That's adulthood." If I mentioned needing to cut back, Mom would get quiet and wounded. We never thought we'd have to ask our child for help. Believe me, Hillary, it's humiliating enough. So I kept paying. I told myself it was family. I told myself they had fed me, raised me, helped me get through life. I told myself Vanessa had kids and more chaos, and I had fewer excuses to say no. Then I had Owen. I didn't expect my family to become completely different people, but I thought maybe a newborn would make them show up. Not in a dramatic way. I didn't need balloons or casseroles every day. I just thought maybe my mom would sit with me for an hour, or my dad would ask if I needed groceries, or Vanessa would stop making everything a competition for 5 minutes. Instead, my parents came by once, took pictures, posted them, and left after Mom said, "You look tired, but that's normal." Vanessa sent a text that said, "Welcome to motherhood, LOL. Now you know." Noelle, my friend, was the person who actually helped. She dropped off bottled water, freezer meals, diapers, and a phone charger because she knew I kept losing mine under burp cloths. She didn't make a speech about being there for me. She just showed up and took out the trash while I cried in the kitchen because Owen had been cluster feeding for hours. I loved my son more than I knew it was possible to love anyone. But I was exhausted in a way that made time feel slippery. Some mornings I couldn't remember whether I had brushed my teeth. I ate toast over the sink. I slept in 20-minute pieces. I wrote Owen's feeding times on sticky notes and taped them to the fridge because my brain felt like wet paper. 8 weeks postpartum, I woke up shaking. At first I thought I was just cold. Then I sat up and the room tilted. My sweatshirt was damp with sweat, but my teeth were chattering. Owen started fussing in the bassinet beside me, and when I reached for him, my hands felt weak. I took my temperature 3 times because I didn't want to believe the number. 103. My discharge papers were still in a folder on the counter, along with insurance forms and a hospital bill I had been too tired to open. The papers had a bold section about postpartum warning signs. Fever, chills, dizziness. Seek urgent care. I called the nurse line with Owen crying in the background. I remember trying to sound calm and failing. The nurse asked me questions in that steady voice medical people use when they don't want to scare you but definitely want you to move. You need to be seen tonight, she said. Do you have someone who can drive you or stay with the baby? I said yes before I knew if it was true. My first call was to my mom. She answered on the 4th ring. I could hear plates clinking, a TV playing some cartoon theme song, and Vanessa laughing in the background. They were at Vanessa's house for dinner. Of course they were. Mom, I said, I have a fever. The nurse said I need to go to the ER. Can you or Dad come watch Owen? Just tonight. I don't think I should take him with me if I can avoid it, and I don't feel safe trying to manage everything alone. There was a pause. Not a worried pause. A bothered pause. Tonight, she said. Yes. The nurse said tonight. Hillary, you always wait until everything is on fire. I closed my eyes. Owen's cry got sharper, hungry and angry, and I shifted the phone against my shoulder while trying to warm a bottle. I didn't wait. I just got the fever. Please. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't serious. Dad's voice came from farther away. What does she need? Mom covered the phone badly and said, she wants us to leave now and watch the baby because she says she has a fever. I heard Vanessa say, Mom, don't let her guilt trip you again. Again. That word hit harder than I expected. Mom came back on the line. Honey, Vanessa's had a terrible day. The kids have been difficult, and we're already here helping. She managed 2 kids without making the whole family panic. I'm not panicking, I said. My voice cracked on the last word, which made it sound like a lie. I need medical care. I am asking you to keep Owen safe for a few hours. Dad took the phone. His voice was flat and practical, which somehow made it worse. We can't just drop everything because you didn't plan better. Call one of your friends. You're an adult. Dad, I have a 103 fever. Then go get checked. But don't turn this into a family emergency. I looked at Owen, red-faced and furious in his little sleeper, and something inside me went very still. I was not asking them to raise my baby. I was asking them to keep him safe while I got medical care. Okay, I said. Mom got back on the phone and sighed like I had exhausted her. Don't make this uglier than it needs to be. Text us when you know what's going on. I hung up. Then I did what I always did. I handled it. My hand shook so hard it took 3 tries to book an emergency sitter through a vetted childcare service. The last-minute fee made my stomach twist, but I paid it. Then I called Noelle. She picked up immediately. I got 3 words out before crying. I need help. I'm coming, she said. No questions. No lecture. No reminder of what she had going on. She just came. By the time she arrived, I had taped Owen's feeding schedule to the fridge, packed extra diapers on the counter, written down the pediatrician's number, and changed my shirt because the one I had been wearing was soaked through. Noelle walked in carrying a phone charger, bottled water, and a pack of diapers. She took one look at me and said, "Stop apologizing. Just go get treated." The sitter arrived 20 minutes later, calm and professional with ID, references, and a rate that would have made me wince if I had the energy. Noelle stayed until everything was settled, then drove me to the ER because she said I looked like I might faint in the parking lot. At intake, the nurse asked my symptoms, my delivery date, whether I was breastfeeding, whether I had pain, whether I felt safe at home. She wrapped a plastic bracelet around my wrist and told me to sit down before I fell down. I remember the cold chair, the smell of sanitizer, the way my sweatshirt sleeves were stretched over my hands. I remember thinking that I should text my mom an update because that was the polite thing to do, even though she hadn't asked if I had made it there. After blood work and a lot of waiting, they started antibiotics. Noelle sat next to me until I told her to go back and check on Owen. She didn't want to leave, but I needed someone I trusted near my baby more than I needed someone near my hospital bed. When she left, I was alone with the hum of machines and my phone. A banking app notification slid across the screen. Scheduled transfer. Tomorrow morning. The amount stared back at me. For years, that number had looked like duty. It had looked like being a good daughter. It had looked like proof that I cared. That night, under fluorescent lights, with a hospital bracelet on my wrist and antibiotics dripping into my arm, it looked different. It looked like proof that my parents had a faster emergency response for their bank account than for me. I opened the app. My thumb hovered over the screen for a long time. I was not angry in a loud way. I was too tired for loud. I was cold, sick, and suddenly very clear. I canceled the automatic transfer. Then I froze the shared card. Then I opened my email and wrote exactly 3 sentences. Since I'm too unreliable to count on in an emergency, I'm also too unreliable to keep funding everyone else's comfort. The automatic transfer and shared card are canceled effective immediately. Any bills in your name are your responsibility going forward. I sent it to both my parents and copied myself. The response came so fast it would have been funny if I hadn't been lying in a hospital bed. Mom called first. I let it ring. Dad called. Then Mom again. The family group chat lit up. Mom. Hillary, how could you do this to your own parents? Dad, you made your point. Turn the card back on before something bounces. Vanessa. Are you serious right now? Mom. We are worried about you, but this is cruel. Vanessa. You're punishing everyone because Mom couldn't babysit on command. Dad. This is not how adults handle family disagreements. Noelle texted me privately a minute later. Noelle. Do not answer them while you're sick. Then another text. Noelle. Download every statement. Screenshot everything. Before they rewrite it. I stared at that message. Before they rewrite it. That was exactly what my family did. They turned patterns into accidents, accidents into misunderstandings, and misunderstandings into my fault. So I started saving everything. From the ER bed, with one hand half numb from the 4-tape, I downloaded bank statements. I saved credit card records. I screenshotted old texts where Mom called the money temporary. I saved the ER messages. I saved Vanessa's guilt trip comment from the group chat. I made a cloud folder and put everything inside it because I suddenly had the strange, sick feeling that if I didn't preserve the truth immediately, they would smother it by morning. That was when Grandpa Arthur called. My grandfather was 84, and he had never been the warm, fuzzy type. He was not mean. He just preferred paperwork to speeches. He noticed things, filed things, and remembered dates that everyone else hoped he had forgotten. I answered because he almost never called late. Did you finally find out? He asked. No hello. No small talk. I sat up too quickly and got dizzy. Find out what? There was a silence on his end. Where are you? He asked. The ER. I have a fever. I'm okay, I think. They're giving me antibiotics. What are you talking about? His voice changed, not softer exactly, but more careful. Your mother told me you stopped helping years ago. Said you were wrapped up in your own life and didn't want to be involved. For a second, I thought the fever was making me misunderstand him. I have been sending them money every month for 4 years, I said. And they had a shared card for emergencies until an hour ago. Arthur didn't raise his voice. That was not his style. He just said, send me proof. So I did. I sent screenshots first, then PDFs, then the automatic transfer history. 5 minutes later, he sent me files back. Trust paperwork. Attorney emails. A ledger. Clean, boring documents that made my stomach drop harder than any screaming match could have. Years earlier, Arthur had created a family trust with specific support arrangements for my parents. Not endless luxury money, but enough to help with major expenses. Enough that the story they had told me about being one bill away from disaster didn't make sense. They told me they needed temporary help, I said. They told me you refused to help, Arthur said. I don't argue with paper. We will compare paper. We didn't do it all that night. I was too sick, and the nurse came in twice to check my vitals and remind me to rest. But once I was discharged with antibiotics, instructions, and another stack of medical papers, I went home and opened my laptop while Owen slept in tiny squeaky breaths beside me. Noelle sat at my kitchen table with me the next afternoon. She held Owen while I built a simple spreadsheet with dates, amounts, and notes. Arthur sent more documents through email. He had kept copies because, as he put it, people get creative when money has no receipts. The pattern was not hidden once I knew where to look. My transfer would land in my parents' account. Within days, a similar amount would move out. One month, my transfer cleared on a Monday. On Wednesday, there was a payment marked preschool deposit. Vanessa's youngest had started preschool that same week. Another month, my transfer landed, and 2 days later a near-matching payment went toward a credit card account Arthur recognized from something Vanessa had once asked him about. There was a vehicle repair that lined up with the week Vanessa complained in the family chat that her car was making that death noise again. There was a payment labeled V Help. My hands went cold when I saw that one. Noelle looked over my shoulder and said quietly, "That was your transfer." "And 2 days later," I said, "it went to rescue Vanessa." The betrayal was not dramatic in the way people think betrayal will be. There was no single villain monologue. No one had emptied an account overnight. It was worse because it was ordinary. It was years of entitlement covered in family language. Mom and Dad had taken my guilt, turned it into monthly income, and used the freedom it gave them to keep cushioning Vanessa's life. They let me believe I was saving them from losing the house while telling my grandfather I didn't care enough to help. When I thought about the AR call, I felt something inside me shut permanently. Not because they had disappointed me. I was used to that. Because Owen had been part of it now. Their version of family had always hurt me. That night it could have put my baby at risk. That was the line I could not unsee. My parents didn't apologize. They escalated. Mom sent, "Call me." Then, "Hillary, this is getting out of hand." Then, "Don't make your father worry about bills while you're being emotional." Dad sent, "You do not get to hold money over our heads." Vanessa sent, "Nobody forced you to send money. You don't get to act like a victim because Mom had one boundary." I wanted to write back paragraphs. I wanted to ask how they could sleep after doing this. I wanted to send Vanessa a screenshot with the preschool deposit circled in red. Instead, I listened to Noelle. "You don't need to argue louder," she said. "You need receipts." So I built the folder. I printed bank statements showing years of automatic transfers. I printed texts where Mom called the support temporary. I printed the ER messages and the babysitter invoice with the ridiculous last-minute fee. I printed shared card records, including charges labeled pharmacy, utilities, emergency, and a few that were clearly not emergencies once I compared dates. I printed Arthur's trust documents and the attorney email showing my parents had received separate family support. I made a one-page timeline because I knew if I gave them too much room, they would try to drown everyone in emotion. I also did things I should have done years earlier. I changed passwords. I removed my parents from shared services. I called the bank and made sure the card could not be reopened without my permission. I checked my credit report because the fact that I even had to wonder made me nauseous. A week later, my parents demanded a Sunday dinner to clear the air. Mom said it in the family group chat like she was announcing a peace summit. "Mom, we need to sit down as a family. Hillary owes everyone an explanation." "Dad, this has gone far enough." "Vanessa, fine with me. I'm tired of being blamed for her issues." I had Owen sleeping against my chest when the messages came in. His little hand was curled into my sweatshirt like he was holding on to me. For once, I didn't feel the old reflex to defend myself immediately. I texted back, "I'll be there." Then I texted Arthur separately. He replied, "So will I." Sunday dinner had the exact fake casual feeling I expected. Paper plates stacked near the stove. The TV on low even though nobody was watching. A bowl of salad sweating on the counter. A baby monitor beside the napkins because I had put Owen down in the quiet guest room after checking the space myself. My parents had invited a few relatives which told me everything. They didn't want to clear the air. They wanted an audience. Vanessa sat beside Caleb with her arms crossed. Caleb looked uncomfortable, but not angry yet. He was the kind of person who disliked drama as long as the benefits of avoiding it kept flowing his way. Mom started before I had even taken off my coat. "I want everyone to understand what happened," she said, already sounding like she might cry. Hillary cut off her own parents while holding a baby. I wasn't holding Owen when I canceled it, I said. I was in the ER. That's not the point, Mom snapped. It was always amazing how fast paperwork made people say that. Dad stepped in with his practical voice. We asked for help during a hard season, and now she's acting like money makes her better than us. Vanessa gave a little laugh. She's mad because Mom had one boundary. I looked at her. Refusing to watch a newborn while his mother goes to the ER is not a boundary. You always make things about you when Mom says no, Vanessa said. Caleb shifted in his chair but stayed quiet. Mom put her hand over her chest. You know your sister has always struggled more. There it was. The family motto. I let them keep going. Dad said I was being immature. Mom said I had embarrassed them. Vanessa said I was punishing her kids because I was jealous. A cousin asked softly whether I could have waited until things were calmer, which almost made me laugh because I had waited my entire life for things to be calmer. When they finally ran out of the first wave, I placed the folder on the table. It made a plain, heavy sound. Nobody spoke. I opened it and handed out copies starting with Arthur, then my parents, then Vanessa and Caleb, then the relatives closest to me. These are the transfers, I said. My voice was tired but it didn't shake. For years of them. These are the messages where Mom and Dad said the help was temporary. These are the ER texts from the night they refused to help with Owen. This is the emergency sitter invoice. These are the shared card records. Mom stared at the papers like they had insulted her. Hillary, she said warningly. I kept going. And these are the trust documents Grandpa Arthur sent me. They show Mom and Dad had separate support for major expenses while telling me they were barely keeping the house afloat. Dad's face turned a color I had never seen before. Do you want everyone knowing our business? He asked. No, I said. I wanted my family not to lie to me. That option expired. Vanessa flipped through the pages too quickly. This doesn't prove what you think it proves. Arthur spoke from the end of the table. Slow down and read it, he said. She glared at him but she slowed down. I pointed to the timeline. My transfer came in here. 2 days later, a similar amount went to a preschool deposit. Here my transfer came in. Then a credit card payment connected to Vanessa's household went out. Here is the vehicle repair. Here is the payment labeled V Help. Caleb reached for Vanessa's copy. What is she talking about? He asked. Vanessa pulled the paper back. I don't know where Mom and Dad got their money. They help sometimes. That's normal. Caleb looked at the page again. Why does this one have Hillary's initials next to it? Vanessa didn't answer right away. Mom jumped in. That is not the point. The point is your sister needed help and family helps family. I looked at her and said the one sentence I had actually thought through beforehand. I didn't cut off my family. I cut off the lie that I was only family when my money cleared. The room went silent except for the low noise of the TV. Dad leaned forward. You are humiliating your mother. I didn't create the paperwork, I said. I only stopped hiding it. Mom's eyes filled with tears, but for the first time in my life, they didn't move me the way they used to. I could tell the difference between pain and performance now. Maybe she was genuinely upset. Maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe both. But her feelings did not erase what she had done. Arthur stood slowly. Everyone looked at him because Arthur didn't stand unless he was leaving or ending something. No more family money moves through guilt, he said. Mom whispered, Dad, please. He held up one hand. I have already contacted my attorney. Marcia and Dennis, you will no longer have informal control over any family funds until the accounts are reviewed. Any future assistance goes through the attorney with receipts. No side arrangements. No stories. No pressure. Dad pushed his chair back. This is ridiculous. You're going to believe her over us. Arthur looked at him like he had said something stupid. I believe documents. You should have remembered that. Vanessa stood up so fast her chair scraped the floor. So what? I'm the villain because my parents helped me. No, I said. You're responsible because you let me be called selfish while you benefited from money I was sending under false pretenses. I didn't know, she snapped. Caleb said quietly, you knew enough not to ask too many questions. That landed harder than anything I could have said. Vanessa turned on him, but he was still staring at the timeline. So Hillary paid for that? He asked. The car repair? The preschool deposit? Nobody answered him. There was no screaming finale. No one confessed everything. Mom cried. Dad muttered that I had destroyed the family over money. Vanessa called me jealous twice and cruel 3 times. A couple of relatives suddenly got very interested in their paper plates. One aunt said, "Well, there are 2 sides," until Arthur asked her which side of the bank statement she meant. I left before dessert. I picked Owen up from the guest room, warm and sleepy, his cheek creased from the blanket. Mom followed me into the hallway. "You're really going to do this?" she asked. "I already did. We didn't think you needed us," she said. For a second she sounded smaller. Almost honest. I looked at my son, then back at her. "That was the problem," I said. "You never asked." The fallout was ugly but not surprising. My parents lost my monthly transfer and the shared card. They also lost Arthur's blind trust, which bothered them more than they admitted. Arthur's attorney began reviewing previous distributions, and suddenly Dad, who had always loved saying family shouldn't nickel and dime each other, cared a lot about documentation. Vanessa lost the hidden cushion she had treated like weather, something that just appeared when her life got uncomfortable. She sent me one long text accusing me of punishing her kids. I replied once, "You and your kids are not entitled to money I was tricked into sending." Then I stopped responding. Caleb did not contact me directly at first, but Noel heard through the family grapevine that he and Vanessa were fighting. Apparently he had believed Mom and Dad helped us meant Mom and Dad helped them, not Hillary unknowingly helped them through Mom and Dad. I did not celebrate that. I just let it be their problem. Relatives started texting me too. Some apologized. A cousin wrote, "I didn't know you were in the yard that night. I'm sorry." That one felt genuine. Some were just fishing. "Hope you're okay. What exactly happened with the trust?" I ignored those. Some tried to smooth things over because they were uncomfortable with proof. "Your mom made mistakes, but she's still your mom." I did not answer those either. The medical bills arrived 2 weeks later, which felt almost funny in the bleakest possible way. Nobody in my family asked how I planned to pay them. Mom did send a text about how stressed Dad was, though. I set my boundaries in writing because I had learned that spoken boundaries in my family turned into rumors by sunset. I told my parents there would be no money conversations in front of Owen. No insults. No comments about me being dramatic, selfish, cold, or jealous. No public grandparent performance while dismissing me in private. No visits if they use guilt as payment. And access to my son would never be repayment for years of guilt. Dad said, "This is not how family works." I said, "It is how my family works now." Arthur still visits Owen. He brings plain board books and reads them in the same serious voice he uses for bank documents. He apologized once, not in a dramatic way but in his way. "I should have asked you directly," he said. "They lied to you too," I said. "Yes," he replied. "But I am old enough to know liars prefer distance. I allowed too much of it. That was enough for me." My parents have seen Owen 2 times since the dinner, both times under the rules I gave them. Mom tried once to say, "After everything we've done for you," and I picked up the diaper bag without arguing. She stopped mid-sentence. "I didn't mean it like that," she said. "Then don't say it like that," I replied. We left. A few weeks after the dinner, I was sitting in the quiet living room with Owen asleep against my shoulder. The room was dim, and one of his tiny socks had fallen off somewhere between the couch cushions. My phone buzzed on the side table. "Mom, your father says the house payment bounced." I stared at the message for a long moment. For years, that sentence would have sent me straight into panic. I would have opened my banking app before I even thought. I would have moved money, cut something from my own life, told myself I was doing the right thing, and waited for a thank you that probably wouldn't come. Owen made a small sound in his sleep and tucked his face closer to my neck. I put the phone face down. Then I adjusted the blanket around my son and let my parents' emergency stay theirs. If you liked it, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.